So,
well, we'll see how it goes. Oh, that's right. I have Be Live too. We're live.
We're live.
Well, that worked way better.
All right. So there is going to be a little bit of a delay. So everybody in Acupuncture Business Academy, we want to welcome you. So I know people rearrange their work schedules to be here. So I want to welcome everyone and apologize for the delay. But sometimes technology has a mind of its own. And even though Sam has used Zoom a million times, just today it wasn't working on Facebook. So we're going to just roll with it like we know how to do. And I'm going to take a minute just to welcome Sam, and I don't even know how to say your last name. So
Lippolis.
Lippolis.
Like, no lips with an O in the middle.
Okay, I won't forget that. And I want to let everybody know that Sam and I are friends all of about 3 days, right? Mm-hmm. And that's because I had been looking over your website, which I'll put in the chat somewhere at some point, because I was looking for resources to give to acupuncturists to do telemedicine or telehealth. And you have just brilliant videos and great information. And so I sent you a Facebook message and just said, I thank you for your information. And I'm an acupuncturist, and so I really can't take advantage of the information because we can't bill insurance for this. And you wrote back and you just said, yeah, and you just gave me a few pointers. And so I just said, hey, I do have a group of acupuncturists if you ever want to talk to some people. And you said, sure. And so I just want to say to everybody, you never know by reaching out to somebody what you're going to get back. So take a chance. And I'm so grateful to you, Sam, for responding. And we just whipped the same thing together pretty quickly. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. I mean, that's the thing, right? Telemedicine is my thing. So as Lisa mentioned, I have a show that's called Sam I Am Innovates. And every week I chit chat about all things telemedicine. And a lot of times I do end up talking about reimbursement and regulatory things because I've worked on the medical side for a long time in big hospitals. And that tends to be the most common questions. Will I get paid? Will I get sued? And then how do I do it? So a lot of times I talk about those kinds of things. So I'm super excited to be here and hope that Lisa and I, through our discussion, can answer things that people are interested in. And especially in this time when we're having a lot of social distancing, no better time than now to do some telemedicine so that you can keep practicing, because healthcare providers can be remote workers. We just have to help them learn how.
So why don't you give us a little bit of background about how long you've been doing this and how you got started, and then I'd like for you to be able to answer some specific questions, hopefully that you can answer for acupuncturists in our sort of unique niche.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I have been implementing telemedicine programs for 10 years. Did you just lose me?
Sorry about that. No, you're
okay,
here.
No worries. We roll with it.
I'm trying to focus on you. This is a new piece of technology for me.
It's all good.
And I'm going to interrupt you 1 second, Sam, because I'm not seeing. Oh yeah, there we are. We're good. Okay.
We're just delayed because I can see it right over on the side here. We're just delayed. Right. So I have been implementing telemedicine programs for 10 years. I've been a telemedicine director in hospital systems and doing everything from level 1 trauma centers to solo practices to critical access hospitals. And I left the big hospital realm earlier this year, actually about the beginning of the year, and had started my blog about a year ago, because what I started to see is how can we allow clinicians in private practice to actually get this kind of information and tools. I don't think it should be locked behind the walls of hospitals. I also don't think it should be locked behind the walls of tech companies. So I decided to come out on my own. I started that video show last August and just started talking about, hey, how can we do this? Normally I teach online courses where I do support in office hours and things. But as we looked at Corona coming out, I just thought, you know what? Let's start getting online and let's see if there's people who need to rapidly implement, because that's a little different. Normally we do it over like a 60-day period just because people are busy. But that's what I've done. And really, I've trained 700 clinicians. I've done across 15 different specialties in 5 different states. I've never done acupuncture specifically, but we've certainly, obviously, we're not saying you would do needles through telemedicine. We're not confused. like about that. But if you think about other things you do, we've certainly brought up programs in, nutrition therapy and wellness and things like that. So there's lots of things you can do that aren't hands-on, and that's me and what I've been up to for a long, long time.
Wow. So what are some of the specialties of people that you've worked with, or types of licensing of people that you've worked with?
Yeah, so really everything from, physicians, and that can be across all specialties, whether it's, pulmonology, cardiology, primary care, registered dietitians, social workers, and social work, is huge, right? It's everything from the social worker who supports a transplant patient to the social worker who is, all behavioral health. So really all kinds of realms there. We've done, infectious disease. I mean, really and we've done scheduled visits, telestroke. So I know one thing we've seen is some of what you're doing in acupuncture, you do different movement things. So I want to explain two different things where we see could really apply. So one, if you think about telestroke is probably one of the most normal, really, that happens a lot of times. And what you need to remember is that doctor is doing an actual physical exam and evaluating someone from an NIH stroke scale and saying, are you shaky? Are you this, right? You guys can see me. You can see what I'm doing. Now, you on the other end of Facebook, you're only one way, but of course, Lisa and I could have an actual conversation about what's happening with that. Another area we've seen a big expansion in is PT. So tele-BT has become very big. It's all cash pay because one, they're not acceptable providers, but also because when you look at the cost of the copay, when you then just do that as out of pocket. So tele-PT has had a lot of movement, and then also dietitians, registered dietitians, different medical nutrition therapies, so those kinds of things.
Great. And we qualify for a lot of that stuff, right? But insurance is not going to reimburse us for that.
No. So unfortunately, I always say regulation and efficacy are rarely match to each other. So even things like PT, OT, speech language, they all are efficacious within their associations for telemedicine, but CMS rules are acceptable. They have a list of telehealth acceptable providers, and in their mind, telehealth is two-way live audio video conferencing. So from a definition standpoint, what you want to think about telehealth is there's a definition for telehealth by payers, and that's normally two-way live audio video conferencing. There's a definition of telehealth by self-funded plans and employer plans, because they can make whatever rules they want. So sometimes they say telehealth can be additional provider types, or it could be text messaging or whatever. And then the third definition will always be your professional board. So the medical boards, it varies by state to state. Some states say it's only video conferencing is telehealth. Some people say it's whatever tool a provider determines. Unfortunately, acupuncture in the billable world is not an acceptable provider to bill. The only acceptable providers are physicians, advanced practice, licensed clinical social workers, licensed psychologists, nurse midwives, and registered dietitians. So it's actually a pretty small list that CMS has decided are acceptable providers to bill for telemedicine.
And as I recall, you said, because this caught my attention, you had said in one of your videos, you listed those providers, and you said registered dietitians and then nutrition professionals. And I was wondering,
nutrition professionals, right? So they, I'd have to look at, I think they registered dietitian and medical nutritional therapist. So,
okay. So that's
medical nutritional therapist. And the reason that is what I've learned is some RNs are then this medical nutrition, MNT.
Okay. So then those might be people that are specifically giving dietary advice for diabetes, let's say, or something like that.
Yeah. And even within registered dietitians for telehealth, there's still a lot of regulations. It tends to be what they accept as billable is the diabetic education courses that are verified by American Diabetic Association.
Okay. So let's just say acupuncturists are not going to fall into the category where we get reimbursed by insurance company. So let's move on to, all right, how do we do this and become cash pay virtual practitioners if we can't be sticking needles in people, which is what we're trained to do? What is your suggestion for acupuncturists to change from, I think you said it, from, people coming in and seeing us to the virtual world?
Yeah. So I think overall in your practice, what you always want to be looking at, and I say this to any kind of providers, is that look in your practice for things that aren't billed, that you can't bill the insurance anyway, and that people are already paying you cash pay for. So of course, in acupuncture, you're going to have your herbal consultations. You're going to have your nutrition that you guys are doing and wellness visits. If you're doing any kind of movement, whether that's yoga or whatnot. And actually, Lisa, if you want to share that slide, that could be a good dividing sector. But I think what's important for people to think about is, where do you already have cash pay? And that's a perfect thing to transition into video. And I also think it's really important that right now, when we're asking for social distancing, and I know your group is from around the world, the reality is, you guys are, you are small businesses, right? And so if you shut your door, that means you have no money, and you don't know how long I'm shutting my door for, a week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And so I would look at it much more. We've got the slide up here. If you're doing nutrition coaching, and you could actually look ahead at your book of business, at your appointments for the next 2 weeks, and you could actively be like, oh, well, this is, Susie. She would be great for my wellness lifestyle, and actively outreach to her and say, hey, we are here to protect you and to keep you safe and to keep myself safe. And so I am offering virtual visits, and it's the same price. We're going to get you up through a virtual, an app or different kinds of technology. And Lisa and I will talk about some of the ones that we know that you use already. And so honestly, I follow a lot of people on Instagram, a lot of therapists, a lot of PT, things like that. I'm seeing posts like every day, hey, everybody, don't worry, I'm going virtual. So I think it's important that I don't want to see all of you just shutter the windows for the next weeks and weeks, because people who can work from home are working from home. And there's no reason why that the portions of your practice that can be done from home, now is the time to do it.
Yeah, I remember you said, I gave Sam access to our group for the last 24 hours, basically, so that, because we knew we were going to do this live stream, but also I like it when I bring an expert in so they can get a feel for who we are and what kind of questions we have. And I know, Sam, that you had said that you noticed that we were going into closed mode instead of virtual mode. And
I just think, and I'm seeing it in all. It's not only acupuncture, I'm seeing it in medicine too. And I think what we all want to remember is, right, we're here to serve. I'm not a clinician. Let me be clear about that. Not a clinician. I work with clinicians. But we're here to serve, and we have patients, whether they're well, whether they might be patients who have chronic diseases, whether they may be high-risk patients. We want to continue to serve them, right? And if we can, why wouldn't we use this technology to do it? Because also, you don't want people feeling isolated and they have no place to get care. And let's think on the medicine side of things. Can you imagine if every ambulatory clinic and every clinic shuts down? That's going to be a problem, right? Of course, we want to protect resources, but the resources we want to protect are hospitals and keeping people out of space. If we can do this virtual care, oh my gosh, now's our time. And also, as business owners, I don't want people to feel like, well, I got to just shut the doors. It doesn't really make sense when it's not necessary.
Right. So I want to just go over this slide again real quickly, and then I want to ask you about how we can prepare our patients for this transition and help to manage their expectations so we feel comfortable when we're asking to charge them. So let me go back to this slide, because I do want to just point out something here that may not have been clear. And that is most of the acupuncturists that have commented and actually enlightened me are herbalists, and they've been doing virtual herbal prescriptions for quite a while, which I was really excited to hear about. And then the other sort of group of acupuncturists are people who really don't do herbs and are wondering, what could I possibly be doing? with a virtual clinic or virtual consultations. And so that's where all these other ideas come from. You do have to check your scope of practice. So in the state of Washington, our scope of practice includes nutritional counseling and lifestyle counseling, and you can do therapeutic exercises. So you have all of these other skills and techniques and things that you've learned, not to mention all the other certifications and life experience that you have that you can bring to the table here. And then once you kind of have an idea of the type of technique that you want to share with people or help them, then you can decide what niche or what market you want to work with. So maybe it's women over 50, maybe it's pregnant women or women who are trying to get pregnant. Maybe it's retired women. Maybe it's women who are tired because they've got toddlers. Maybe it's women athletes. So you can see how you can really narrow it down. And then you could even go a step further, or instead of this step, you could go, women over 50 that have migraine headaches, or pregnant women with sciatica, or, athletes that have high cholesterol and high blood pressure or exercise-induced asthma. So you can see where you can actually take this stuff to an incredibly narrow area that you're most interested in and really, really help people that way. So I want to try to spur some ideas for you guys to make it easier to come up with a type of course or maybe a series of consultations that you could put together for people. So, stress relief is probably a big one right now. If you need ideas, then no problem. That's where I go over a lot of this stuff in the Diversify Your Income group. But I just wanted to give you sort of a broad idea that we have so much more knowledge than we give ourselves credit for. And a lot of times we are spending time in the treatment room teaching people these things. We don't even realize how much information we give to people. And that's why people trust us, because we give them so much of that stuff. So if we can separate out what we're doing in that treatment room, the acupuncture and the actual physical stuff that we can't really do right now, with the information that we provide, I think this can open up doors for you that go well beyond this period of time of the coronavirus, which we will get through. We will all get through this. But this could be opening up a door that you take on and it changes your practice forever. So, Sam, how can we educate our patients to say, we're doing something new now, we're doing this virtual medicine, and how can we give them some parameters for their expectations and how they're going to pay us and how we're going to get consent forms and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I think what you're looking at there is really, like I said, is I think a great way to go about it to get started, and especially get started quickly, is that you look at who's already in my patient schedule, and the people who, maybe if it's only doing the needle part, then you're like, okay, we're canceling this. But if you had someone that you're already doing additional services for, and again, that you already knew that was going to be a cash pay portion, I would call them and I would be like, hey, this is so great. I wanted to let you know that even though so many places are closing, we don't want to disrupt your care. We want to offer you, we started doing virtual visits. This will be through video. Hey, have you ever FaceTimed or Skyped with your friends or family? It's like that, but it's data protected, it's HIPAA compliant. I think you make it really about that it's a service, that you want to make sure you're still serving your patients and you have decided to do this as a service to them. People are open to it. I got a lot of stats about that when a provider asks a patient if they want to do telemedicine. Now, this was asked to cohorts of patients across the country. 4,700 patients were asked against all payer mixes, all socioeconomics, all of that. Basically, they said, would you do telemedicine if it was offered by your provider? And between, it's not exact, but about 30 to 45% will definitely or probably accept if they were asked by their provider. So I think also we don't ask because we don't do it. So we just think people won't do it.
That's huge. That's huge.
I mean, I'm not kidding you. Oncology results, 45% said they would do a virtual visit. I was like, is this a problem? So again, you got to think about, this was a broad range of questions for people. When your provider asks, you trust your provider. So you're like, Well, I will do that.
So this is something we could all do right now. We could all look through our schedule, the people that we've canceled, and just say which ones would I feel most comfortable calling and saying, I'm doing virtual consults right now, and I'd love to make sure your care is continued. So let's go ahead and set something up. It's the same price as coming in.
Yeah. And what I want you to remember is even once this is over, depending on what city you live in, I mean, when I live in Denver, right now I'm in Cincinnati, but when I'm back in Denver, the traffic is horrible. It's a blessing to me if someone would say, you know what, you want to do a virtual visit so that you don't have to drive 30 minutes across town each way to come in and see me.
Right. That's it. Those are actually really good points. Mm-hmm. So Sam, I've noticed there's a few questions that have come up.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to ask them. First, I'm going to try to find them.
Okay, I see one here. I'll take them too. So I see Margaret of Better Practice. So I have personally not implemented Better Practice, but I've been an end user in Better Practice, and Lisa and I have talked about it. I think it's a great platform. As an end user, it was super easy to use. Some of the things of any platform you choose, and keep in mind, I'm not a technologist. I don't get money from technology. I prefer to be technology agnostic. I can always recommend stuff, but for me, the tech, it actually can be the easy part. It's really making sure you have workflows and thought through your protocols. So I like Practice Better. I would highly recommend it. I found it incredibly easy to use. And like Lisa said, when you're thinking about consents and everything like that, all that you could do through Better Practice. If you're doing movement things or herbs or wellness or food, again, you can put all that through the platform. So I really like it.
Yeah, and I'll add, I just put the link, my affiliate link, just so everybody knows, in the chat. And I've been a practitioner user of Better Practice. And I was very relieved to find that it has all the consent forms there. You can modify them, or you can upload your own if you have some different ones. And because it's nutritionally based, it was developed by nutritionists in Canada. It has a lot of food diary stuff and nutrition recommendations, and it also integrates with FullScript, which is kind of like a Wellevate. It's a practitioner-based portal for supplements and herbs and that kind of stuff. So right through there, you can recommend that your clients or patients purchase right through the portal. And then it also has a checkout system that you just connect either your PayPal account or Stripe or whatever you have. So it's just so well integrated that I think that if you want to get up and running quickly with, and they have good trainings, they have good video training, then that would be a great way to go.
Yeah, I would agree, especially it's in your niche also. So I like it. I think
and the pricing isn't too bad either. Good. The first 3 clients are free, and then as you get more clients, then you can afford to pay more, and then you pay more.
Yeah, so I like that one. Let me see here. We've got some people talking about lots of protocols. So let's just talk about protocols for a minute, because that's sort of some of that logistical kind of stuff. So sometimes people say like, well, like, what do I do? What we always look at is workflows really are your most important thing, and you understanding what you're going to do. So I just always want you to think, when you're thinking about how do I set this up, think about what do you do in person? You always want to remember, telehealth is only a tool to deliver clinical care. It is not a unique and distinct clinical service. So you just want to think to yourself, what are my, what do they get when they come in? What do they get when they leave? How do I go over things? Do I need to see how they move? Think about it in the exact same way. That's all you're simulating. Now, of course, if you said, I have to be, if I have to stick needles in them, okay, that's not appropriate. But you really just think about, what do I do in person? Don't think about it like, oh, this is some different thing. How am I going to be able to do this? Think about, what do I do in person? How do I make sure I cover those things virtually?
Perfect. So I'm just looking through some of these other questions in here. There was a question I saw is, why would you call someone who hasn't canceled yet? I don't know who asked that. But when I said that, I was referring to I closed my clinic. So I called all my people to let them know we were closing. And I could have used that opportunity to say, and we're setting up virtual visits so we can continue your care. That would have been a smart thing to do. Since I didn't do that then, I can always go back to people who I've canceled because I'm closed my clinic for a period of time to be I don't know how long it's going to be closed. I could go back and call those people and say, we're doing virtual visits, so let's get you set up. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question. I wasn't sure if that's
I see one in here. They're asking us, okay, can you use Practice Better for telehealth even if you chart with another EHR? So yes, you can. And if that works for you, you can do that. There's a free telemedicine thing called Doxy.me, DOXY.me, and Lisa can throw a link in here. I will be honest, people give mixed reviews on it in terms of how awesome it is, but it is free. And so that can be a way that you do it. So I always say, if you already have an EMR, then if you're keeping it cheap, look at Practice Better, and that may still work for you, or just find like a low cost video thing to do, and then you'll still document in your EMR. There's another company that I have worked with called TeleMD, and they're a per click. So the charge can either go to you or the patient. So that's another program, but that was kind of the question about if you already had an EMR, so you can kind of play with it.
Sam, I'm thinking back to when we first spoke, and you talked about standard of care, and I just wanted to just talk about that for a second, because I think that that's only for the licensed practitioners who are who can get reimbursed from insurance that have to follow standard of care, versus what we're describing we'd be doing is health coaching. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so
that's true. We should have a
lawyer. It's not legal advice, everybody.
Right.
But this kind of relates to a question I see here about, can we talk about malpractice? So I'll weave it together. Yeah, the between like clinical care and health coaching is a bit of a gray area. And so if you already do what you consider health coaching and you have a consent around that, I would use that, right? Okay. So there you can distinguish it there. If I'm doing health coaching versus clinical care. Acupuncture, you are people that come a little more in that gray zone on things. I would just do the appropriate consent. This is a health coaching. This is a clinical thing, because you want to be real clear on that. So that's some of that expectation with your patients. Does that answer for you?
It's still a little gray.
Yeah, I mean,
it's gray. It's a gray area.
It is gray. It is gray, and I think I'd also say, like, if in your practice you really consider that this is clinical care, then I would follow it as clinical care. I mean, I think it's also that, right? You also need to look at yourself and say, if they were in my practice, I would absolutely consider this clinical care as opposed to health coaching. But here's what I'm going to say. That shouldn't be a barrier, because as long as you're meeting your standard of care, if your standard of care in doing your herbal consults is your checklist of 10 questions and answers, and then you prescribe or recommend these herbs, then that's the same thing. What becomes wonky is when you're doing something totally different, and then you're like, well, I don't ask questions anymore. This is virtual. We just, hug it out and call it a day. So that's not appropriate, right? You want to keep it appropriate. So someone asked me about malpractice. Let me just, before that goes. So in the medicine side, now I want to be clear, I haven't looked in specific around acupuncture, but in nursing, doctors, blah, blah, malpractice. Telemedicine is covered. It is covered because it is nothing different. It's covered because it's a tool to deliver clinical care, not a unique and distinct service. I've talked to the compliance director of one of the largest malpractice companies in the country, and she started laughing because I asked her, hey, can I have like a position paper about how you feel about telemedicine? She was like, I don't understand. And I said, well, people are concerned. And she said, you don't have to have a writer. You should not be paying more. You do need to inform your malpractice company, but if your malpractice company says you need to pay more, she's like, switch malpractice companies. Now, of course, you're going to make it clear to them you're not having people insert their own needles. That would be crazy. But for these other things, it shouldn't be an issue. If it is your malpractice company, it's no good.
Well, that may be true, actually, for some malpractice companies for acupuncture, to be honest with you. Yeah. There's a question here that says, that she's licensed. I'm sorry, I can't tell who it is. Licensed in DC and Virginia. Can I only work online with patients in DC or Virginia, or can I work with people in other states? So this is a really big question.
We talked about in the beginning. Yeah. Yes. You must be licensed in the state where the patient is located. So when you use telehealth as this two-way live audio video conferencing, you must be licensed in the state where the patient is located. So if you don't have a license in that state, do not practice. Now, telephones, talking and audio on a telephone are not regulated. So you can talk on the phone, but don't use two-way live audio video unless you have a license.
Okay, but then that goes back to my question about being a health coach, where we're not relying on our licensing for that. So
that's the thing. If you consented it out as a health coach, now again, we are not lawyers.
We're not lawyers. Disclaimer.
Right. Disclaimer. If you consented it out as health coaching, then you can do video.
I see.
But I think what you want to be clear of, again, I would say, if you don't consider that health coaching in your practice, this should not be the time you consider it health coaching. Don't use telemedicine as an excuse to say, I'm going to change my standard of care. Right? Because that's what you're deciding. You're going, well, I don't have a license, so I'll just make this health coaching. But then when they're back in my clinic, it's clinical care. So I want you to be consistent.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm going to have to ponder that.
Yeah, I would ponder it, but I think just always remember, occupational boards are complaint driven, right? So it's that old adage, do you do what's right when no one's looking? Because no one's going to know until someone pulls you in on a complaint. And let's say you said it was health coaching, and then someone looks all the way back at all your stuff, and they're like, well, how are these other 100 clinical care, but this one is health coaching? It looks like you did the exact same thing.
Right. So scare us a little bit or make us feel a little better, and let us know if you have any data on their complaints with virtual, with telemedicine.
No, this is the thing. There are 0 malpractice claims on telemedicine. There was a study done. It just came out, late last year. And they did a metadata analysis of and they were actually even looking at online primary care, which direct primary care, that means I don't know this patient. I don't know these people. I know nothing. So online direct primary care, not a one. The only ones that ever came up were some weirdo like, Viagra prescriber or some opioid prescriber. So the cases that came up were about bad doctors, not about telemedicine.
Okay. And I remember you already mentioned it, but I want to mention it again, is you said one of the main things that telemedicine is used for is a stroke diagnosis, right? And
telestroke is like so common. If you don't have telestroke, even in a tiny critical access hospital, you are backwards. Like I've implemented telestroke in probably, 150 hospitals throughout various states. It's normal.
So now you're talking about something that sounds very niche-y. So this is interesting. So you could have on your menu of services, telestroke, I'm not saying acupuncturists can, I'm just,
okay.
But I guess I'm thinking about this a little bit differently right now. You can have a menu of services and one of them be a virtual consultation for a specific condition.
Yeah, totally. So you could niche it down that way where you say, I'm awesome at this. I'm really comfortable at this. And I don't see why you need to drive in traffic to come and see me for this. You could niche it that way where you do certain things. Yeah, that's absolutely something you could do.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the questions again and see if you can see any.
Okay, still gray. Okay. Oh, did we talk about hardware, camera, mics? Okay. So I am just on my laptop camera. I do have a more, I'll show you guys. I have like a Yeti mic. I have a pretty fancy mic, but that's because I do a video show. So don't worry about that. I would say, Lisa's got a headset on. I use earbuds plenty. The biggest thing you want to be conscious of is feedback. So Lisa's got hers on because she knows she gets some feedback for her speakers, so she put them on. I don't know if it's because I have the Yeti mic. Camera, totally, you guys could use a regular, as long as your laptop has a good camera. The other camera I highly recommend, this is a Logitech C920. It's $80. This thing is a workhorse. We use them all, whether it's like examining wounds or all kinds of things. They're a workhorse. So if you don't have a decent camera in your laptop or you're a desktop with no camera, I'm a big advocate of the Logitech C920. It works with all different kinds of video systems, and we've been using that for like 10 years. It's a workhorse. Okay, what else is that in here?
I have a Logitech also, and it just says a USB connection, so you just plug it into your computer, and then you just put it on top of your screen.
Okay, someone in here says American Acupuncture Council requires at least one in-office visit a year in order to be covered. So your association must have decided that's important to them. But I think anyone who we're talking about now, needles are part of your practice, so you would have seen them in person. And hopefully that's, again, everyone's always changing their rules over time, but that's important for us to know. What if I have a national certification? So I personally have no clue what a national certification is. Does that mean you have a national license? I wish, right? That's my guess.
We do get certified by the National Certification Commission for Acupuncture, but no, our licensing is in each state.
Yeah. So with your states, yeah.
Unless this is Canada, then I don't know for sure, or if it's a different. But it would just be whatever the regulations are and the scope. Whoever defines your scope, that's who you have to talk to.
Correct. Because we've got some other things like what if I'm board certified integrative health coach? Again, we're going to say all of that stuff. You've got to go back and look at whoever certifies you and whatever occupational board says who you are. It's them who make these rules.
And to be honest with you, this may be new territory for a lot of boards getting questions right now. So if you've called your board, if you can share that in the acupuncture group, or if you called your malpractice insurance, like CMNF, I know people are asking because a lot of people have that. If somebody has made the call and asked if they cover for coaching or virtual consultations or that kind of stuff, then please indicate that in the group. So it saves us. And if they don't approve it, then let's all call.
Yeah, that's the thing. If they don't approve it, then it's where you can start to dig in on some of the council things or something like that. You can show efficacy position papers from your association. Most associations, whether it's PT or pulmonology, have position papers saying they support telemedicine and they support being paid for telemedicine. And so then sometimes you just have to do some digging around there.
Cool. I'm going to read a couple of these. So somebody says, hello from Baltimore. I was thinking of teaching moxibustion protocols to my patients for home treatment, even acupressure treatments. I think that's a great service. And to be able to do that, it's a great niche. And a lot of people don't know how to do moxibustion at home. You got to be really careful. So that's tricky. So just make sure you have all of your agreements and disclaimers and things that go with that. Acupressure for sure. And then another person says, the narrower your niche target market, the more successful or easy to recruit patients or clients. It sounds counterintuitive. People are looking for providers to provide exactly what they're looking for. And that's super true. Yeah. If you have sciatica, it's great to go to somebody who really knows how to treat sciatica. And yeah, so I totally agree with that just from a marketing perspective.
Someone's asking me, Lisa, her PhysiTrack. Again, I'm newer in your guys' specialty. Is that a EMR? Is that some kind of...
Sorry, what was it?
PhysiTrack. It's one of our most recent questions. Any feedback on PhysiTrack? That's the telehealth interface the telehealth interface that integrates with Jane, the EMR. Nope, I've never heard of it. So here's what I do want to be clear. There's like 1,000,001 telehealth platforms. Some of them are great, some of them suck, and some of them are waiting to get bought out to make $1 billion on venture capital. So there's 1 million of them out there. I don't know them all. Whenever you are going to partner with someone or get one, make sure they can give you an actual demo. That's one place to start. That lets you know if it actually works.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much, the EHR piece is interesting. I know with Practice Better, they do have a connection to do some billing of insurance, and I can't speak specifically to that, but they have something integrated there, and they do have the ability to take notes, and so I think that would take the place of your health records.
Okay. I'm not an acupuncturist, but I'm going to answer this question. Would you instruct patients how to insert needles themselves in home? No. No, you would not.
No, never.
Will get you brought up in front of whatever board, and then you're going to get it shut down for the rest of people, and you're going to be known as the acupuncturist, like the Viagra doctors who screwed us on telemedicine on the medical side. That's going to be you. So please don't do that. I'm going to tell you that. Don't do that.
It is considered a medical device, so please don't do that.
It's a terrible, terrible plan. Now, if you want to catch on fire and do some cupping, that might just be fun, but I wouldn't do that either. I would not do that. So I think, let's see, we've got a lot of these answered. People are asking things about, can I be a health coach internationally and across state lines? Here's the thing. I see it all the time. I'm not here to advise you about being a health coach and what exactly that entails in terms of clinical care, of the differentiator. So we don't want to say, go forth and be health coaches, because we're here to talk about how do you implement video into your practice. And especially now, don't shut your doors for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Still serve your patients, which also allows you to make a living.
Right. Sam, if people want to work with you directly, I know you and I have talked about this. I'm going to put a link in the chat. So Sam has a program. I'm going to put this in the chat here. And I'm going to share the screen so you can give us a description of what it is that you teach.
Yeah.
And so you're teaching MDs and
all
PTs,
from MDs and medical nutrition. And then what you got to remember is usually MD is who's like, hey, let's start this. But then we're also training nurses and MAs and anyone inside their practice. So I did normally have a 10-week online course, but given where we are right now with the virus, I've taken that and made it more of a combo. Like, oh my God, look at that video of me. That's a nice face. Who doesn't love that? No, it's fine. Scroll down. It's fine.
Oh, yeah. Scroll down. Here we go.
Scroll down, right.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is a rapid implementation course where it'll be a group live training, and we will do it through Zoom so that you can interact, so that we can interact more. Right here you're getting me one way, but that we'll do 10 days, so Monday through Friday we'll be doing these daily trainings where really we're taking you everything through. How do you make sure you know what your tech is? It's not that I'm a technologist, but we would talk through what that looks like. How do we make sure, whether it's only you or whether you have a virtual assistant or things like that to get your practice going, working through all the workflows? Those are really the questions we walk through and talk about questions of how do I know what I'm doing? How do I make sure I have the consent, the protocol, those kinds of things, all that process kind of work. Obviously, in the very beginning, we'll review again all the legal, regulatory, making sure you understand what that looks like. And then how do you test and train? How do we train you on your tech? And then what kind of scripting? What are you telling patients about? What are you making sure that you have all this ready to talk to them about? And then also testing. So it's not that I'll be testing with you, but we want to make sure you test with a friend, test with whatever, make sure it works, and then being able to go live. So really it's me. Like I said, normally we do online training where you're in an online course and you can get to me to ask office hour type questions. But because I need people to be able to go quickly, we'll be in a group Zoom call and I'll be talking about, okay, today we're talking about tech. These are all the things you need to think of. What kind of, who wants to walk through theirs, the kind of challenges, things like that, same workflows. So I'm doing that. I'm going to start next Monday also. Right now I already have a group up, so this Monday is too late. But we'll be starting next Monday, and I got 2 Mondays out there already. That is price-wise, it's $1,000. Normally my course, and actually this kind of more direct access to me is normally like $2,500, but that's not appropriate at this time whatsoever. So it's $1,000. And then if you do come through Lisa's group, then we're doing 25% off to knock that down to $750. This is really for people who, hey, say, I want to get up and going and I want to make sure I set it up right. Can you DIY it? You can. What I always want you to remember, if you DIY it and things are weird and it doesn't work right, please don't blame it on telemedicine. Please know that the workflow and the implementation and really understanding what you're doing are a big difference between success and just feeling like none of this works.
So I want to just point out too that I want to thank you, Sam, for discounting this. So this is $750. Now, I want to full disclosure to everybody. Sam offered to do an affiliate relationship with me, and I said, no, just please pass on any savings to the ABA people, because I know it's already expensive and this is a tough time. So I don't make a penny off of any of this. So the whole $750 is a discount that she's doing just for you guys. So thank you so much for doing that. Sam, I know that we had talked about, and you had mentioned, I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I have a payment plan too. So we do over 6 months, and I think it's like it's not right in front of me, 140, something like that. The shopping cart would break it out because it'll take that 1,000 and then divide it by 6 and then minus 25%.
Okay, so thank you. So not only did you discount it to $750, but you put in a payment plan in there.
Yeah, 6-month payment plan.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
and so if people want to work with you, they put in their name and their email and then select, they have 3 dates to start, but not this one because this one is already done. So they would check that they want to start the 23rd or the 30th.
Yep.
And then
myself or my admin, Sasha, will directly contact you back to go ahead and just confirm that you're a good fit, because we want to make sure that people will get the results, right? If it's like you have something totally weird, we might be like, I don't know if this is the best idea for you. So we want to make sure you're a good fit, and then we can send you a link to the checkout page.
Okay, awesome. So I want to also point out that this isn't some automatic checkout. So like you just
not
said,
right now, because this is the thing, you guys. Like, I'm like a newer solopreneur, so I'm like wasn't perfect on creating the perfect page and the perfect shopping cart. I was like, let's just stand this up and see if I can help people now, because I really, really want patients to keep being seen, and I want you all to be able to keep earning a living. We can make a difference right now, and by everyone shuttering their doors when we don't need to, it just doesn't feel right.
Right. Well, I also like the fact that you're a good example to all of us that things don't have to be perfect before you launch them.
Yeah.
You can, and I think that's where it all comes back to what you had said earlier, that we can all pick up the phone and call patients and say, hey, I'm launching my virtual practice right now because of, times have changed. But what you're teaching, this is what I find phenomenal, is what you're teaching can really change our mindset for the rest of our career. It could really change our career, because if we can become location independent, like I could be, last year I was in my mom's hospital room a lot, and to be able to, that's when I started doing my virtual consultations, was because of that. It was out of a necessity. So it can change the way we do.
It can change the way, and also you want to think about, like, you're talking about these deep niches, right? So like you're in Oregon, or, and when I'm in Colorado, if you have states around you that you want to go through the process to get licensed, and then you want to start marketing where you have these really special niches that people may be willing to come for, once a year in person. So if that criteria is required, but you could grow a practice and be a lot more geographically unlimited by starting to do this. So I just would love more providers to know, like, man, you all FaceTime and we're on a Facebook Live. I mean, we're
right.
on Facebook Live. You know something about me now. You really have a sense of my personality. Lisa. And so I just think it's important. We have to remember this isn't unique to like just remote IT workers. This is for all of us.
Right. There's a question that asks, what time is your class and what's the link?
Okay, so the classes we are going to be doing is I gotta look again. So for the next week, I think I have it at 8 Pacific. 8 Pacific. Oh, she just put the link in there. At least
that's the link right there.
Yeah, that's the
and
link.
It's just for ABA people.
Yeah, and then if you where did I type it? When you hop on the page, the other thing is if you email me and just ask me if it's not on the page right now, don't worry, I'm not going to like psych or stalk you or whatever. Like you have to sign up. So you can always ask me the question through that email and I can pull it up and I can double check here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the page.
Is it written on there?
Let me get.
I had so many iterations.
I know the feeling. Let's see if I can go back to it. Share the screen. Share. Share. Okay. So here I see starts Mondays and
no, you know what? I'm gonna have to update the page. Let me open. I know where it is now because I had emailed some people.
Go ahead, Sam.
I'll update. Let me just do that. I will update that page once we get off here. And then when you get on that page, you'll see the right timings.
Excellent. No pressure.
Solved.
All right. So I know you're East Coast time. I'm
Correct.
West Coast time. I don't know what everybody else is here, but we've been on a little less than an hour. And I want to respect everybody's time here. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to use a phrase that, because this sticks with me. I wrote it down. I want us all to change our way of thinking, going from closed mode to virtual mode. Yeah. So to be able to tell our patients that, yes, we're closed, but we're virtual. We're still here. We're still here to support you. We're still here to help you. And here's how we're going to do it now. Because we're in this brand new territory. Everybody is. So I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit, where somebody had told me that the Chinese character for crisis contains the character for opportunity. I think there's danger and there's opportunity in there. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking of the person that I need to thank for telling me this and showing me the character, but there is opportunity here in the best intentions that we have to help our patients. So I think if we keep them at the forefront and us being able to keep our businesses alive, this is a really great solution and an opportunity for us to help each other and especially help our patients. So thank you, Sam.
You're so welcome. And I'll update that page so people see it. And also, like, even if you don't do the course, please think about doing telemedicine. Please bring this part of your practice. And when you go onto my website, I have a blog that has tons of video shows with tons of free information. So use that as a resource.
I'll post the blog here and go ahead and subscribe to Sam's list, so that I've gotten her emails, they're really great emails, and I've gone through a lot of her videos and they're on Facebook as well as on the blog. And Sam, can I ask you to spend maybe another day or two inside our Facebook group? And sure. I would ask all the Facebook people, all of our ABA people, please don't private message Sam. She's going to get an inbox full. So please just ask your questions in this thread. And then Sam, if you could check in maybe once a day for the next few days.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that. And it is good if you guys put them in the thread because it benefits everybody else.
Right.
Often people have those same questions and maybe they just didn't ask. So if you put them in the threads, I can go in there and answer them.
Right. And again, I just want to say, I don't make any money from this. Sam's doing this as a service to our group. So thank you so much for doing that and for decreasing the price and doing the payment plan. We really appreciate that because it's tough times for everybody. But again, I want everybody to think about how this can change your practice forever. This isn't just this period of time right now. So again, everybody, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being patient with us. We had to switch technology. That's another story, but it all worked.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.